Hello, everyone. We're excited to be with you today as Business Insurance celebrates 15 years of Women to Watch recognition. Unfortunately, we can't all be together as we typically are during this September time to celebrate the outstanding women that are being recognized for 2020. But we're going to do the next best thing. We're going virtual. We have all endured 9 months of very unprecedented times with the pandemic, and we've had to shift as leaders as how we operate, engage, and take action compared to what we might have done in the past. Today, I'm excited to have three fantastic leaders for our CEO panel to discuss successful leadership in a global crisis. I'm Danielle Lisenbey, your moderator today. I'm currently appointed president of MedRisk, the former president and CEO of Broadspire. And I would like to introduce to you our panel of leaders we have with us today. So Lori, let's start with you.
Thanks so much, Danielle. And I'm Lori Golterman. I'm the CEO of Aon's U.S. business. I lead our commercial risk and health business, and really happy to be here today. Wish it were in person, but a huge congratulations to all of our winners and looking forward to the panel.
We're excited to have you, Lori. How about you, Mike?
Thanks, Danielle. Same as Lori. Congratulations to all of our winners, and I'm thoroughly excited to be here today. I'm Mike Pesch. I'm the CEO of the retail property casualty business for Gallagher, and here in the United States. And again, I'm really excited. Again, I wish we could be in person, but I think this will do.
Thanks, Mike. We're excited to have you. And Lynn?
Thank you, Danielle, and congratulations. This is actually my favorite event of the season. My name's Lynn Oldfield. I'm the president and CEO of AIG in Canada, and I always make the trip to New York for this luncheon. So I am really missing seeing all of you in person. What a pleasure to be here.
Thanks, Lynn. So like we said, we're excited to be here. We're going to get this conversation started, and I'm going to start with the first question here. So people are the center of the insurance industry. How have you maintained or adapted your company culture during these times? Lori, what do you think?
Well, it's, the place I would start is back in March. I think when we first all went home for the pandemic, we grabbed our laptops and probably thought it wasn't going to last the 9 months that we've been here. That's to overnight, to think that we could have 55,000 people in 500 countries log in and have it work overnight. I wouldn't have thought it to be possible. And here we are 9 months later, and we have 100,000 people on WebExes every day, like we're doing today. And I think the biggest and most immediate change that I had to make as a leader is to be flexible, to be agile, and to be really empathetic. I think as we're all settling in to working from home, that home and work life is really merging into one. So how do we make sure that we have enough flexibility in the jobs that we're doing when maybe a working parent is trying to log their 7th grader on to do math and Zoom? Maybe the workday isn't the normal hours that we think of. So I think we immediately pivoted to an entirely different communication strategy and an engagement strategy. While we're always communicating as leaders, this was different. This had to be multiple forms, multiple ways that we could reach our people, podcasts, videos, email, and really think about the engagement side. So if you're used to getting together with your team in person, what were going to be the new ways that we could really have that collaboration when we can't be together? So we've been really changing and trying to innovate and share with each other. The second I would say is it's been refreshing how open clients are to engaging in new ways. I think we all remember the 2-week trip that we might make to London and Bermuda, and now we might do that in 4 hours virtually. And I think some of this might even be a silver lining to say, when we can go back into the office, what will be the new norm? What will we adapt? What will maybe change forever? And I think these are the things that as leaders, we're all exploring. And I think that's what's going to really dramatically change our insurance industry long term. We're certainly looking at it at Aon. And one of the things I would say we're protecting is what I would call the 3 C's. When you think about what the new norm might be, how far can we push that? But what we've got to protect culture and collaboration and career development. And so I would say I think I'm very hopeful of a vaccine, Danielle, but this has been a very different 8 or 9 months, something I never could have imagined. So
Well said, Lori. Yeah, well said. Thank you for sharing. Hey, Mike, how about from your perspective? You can add on to what Lori's perspective is?
Yeah, I would tell you, I agree wholeheartedly with what Lori said. And actually, when we were talking earlier, I love your 3 Cs. I think that is absolutely fantastic. It's to the heart of really everything because, from the get-go in the pandemic, there was a lot of uncertainty. Nobody knew exactly what was going to happen. There was a lot of, you could tell, tense folks within our company and outside of our company. And so maintaining those 3 Cs, boy, I love it. I think that is just absolutely fantastic. I think, when I think through the last 8 or 9 months, early on, it was all about communication and having different channels of communication. We were fortunate at Gallagher. We had an app that we had rolled out for internal communication purposes several years back that we were using really to highlight new wins, new sales, new opportunities, things of that nature, and the ability for people to then see their colleagues and engage in virtual happy hours and talk about. We had some fun with it. We would put out little contests about how we stay connected and around obviously around Halloween we were doing send in pictures or post pictures of your family, your kids, just really trying to personalize what was normally happening every single day inside of our offices, and you lose a bit of that, and who knows where the future of real estate will go and how we will work together once COVID is behind us. But maintaining that level of connectedness to your employees is so important because as vulnerable as we can feel as leaders, you can only imagine what folks are going through in the field that may be more remote and not nearly as connected with others. And so making sure you're staying connected in whatever means, whether it's an app or it's emails or it's podcasts, it really is meaningful. And the feedback that we receive and continue to receive is that don't stop. No matter what happens, let's make sure that we hold on to a bit of this as we find our way through COVID and beyond that.
I think you're spot on, Mike. There's been study after study through all this craziness about us being obviously social beings and that connection and how important that is and how important that we maintain it and the outcome from our staff and our people when the engagement is very strong, no matter what way or shape or form it is. So I think well said. So I'm going to shift gears a little bit on you guys. We're going to talk a little bit about diversity. So diverse workforces have been proven to be successful. How have your D&I initiatives adjusted to the challenging circumstances of the pandemic and even some of the recent social movements? How about you, Lynn? What do you think?
Thanks, Danielle. I think, I'm fortunate at AIG. The tone from the top, which is where I'll start with Brian Dubrow and Peter Zaffino, has always been really strong. Brian was an original signatory to the CEO diversity and inclusion efforts back in 2017. And I think I would say that our efforts have not only increased, but we've augmented and focused. And so that tone from the top and the executive leadership team that have developed from all that has transpired have focused. They've focused our social media campaigns around allyship. We've probably rolled out that campaign more meaningfully around the AIG Women's Open and a lot of internal high-profile employees within our teams that are being interviewed and that are being profiled. So it starts with tone from the top, but I think everything really hit a different gear in June. And I think companies came together, and that was a real reckoning, and it was an immediate moment of action. And our senior executive leadership, Brian and Peter came out forcefully in writing, put a lot of AIG Foundation money behind Amnesty International and NAACP Defense Fund. And I think it was very important. As leaders, we were empowered to sit down with our Black colleagues to have crucial conversations. That real direction and leadership from the top of the house was fed through every single leader at AIG. So there was a groundswell of movement. Leaders were empowered to be educated. Additional volunteer time off was offered. Additional PTO time was offered. And really resonating around, let's educate ourselves. We were sharing a lot of content. We were listening to our colleagues. And now it's about action. So we augmented, we reacted and acted. And now we, I guess what gets measured gets done. And I think you will see this industry has always been very inclusive. The Conference Board of Canada did a survey with the Insurance Institute of Canada 2 years ago. And we found that the diversity and inclusion in the P&C industry in Canada beat the general financial services sector. And in fact, that was diversity on every element. And it was diversity within leadership. So, I think the industry starts from a good place, Danielle. And I believe that then on the ground, what makes it come alive are employee resource groups. So at AIG, we have hundreds of employee resource groups, but I can just share with you what's been happening in Canada. Our Young Professionals, Women and Allies, our Out North LGBTQ group, and our brand new multicultural employee resource group, they're the groundswell of the culture. So it's top down, but it's bottom up. And the ERGs are focused on joint activities, on bringing in guest speakers, and on sharing and moving forward the agenda. There is a mentorship program. All of it comes together, I think, as we strive to be top employers and really listen to our colleagues and learn.
That's phenomenal, Lynn. I think you said it well, with the tone at the top, but the ground swelling from the bottom and bringing it both together is so important. And that's how it's going to really make a change for our industry. Lori, what's your perspective?
Yeah, Lynn, I loved so many of your examples, and I agree with you. It is a tone from the top that has to start and really be intentional about the conversation. And I would say, diversity and inclusion is a boardroom imperative, and it should be at every company. I've been very passionate about it for a long time. I remember when I was first announced as the CEO of Aon, I was amazed at the outpouring and the interest in wanting to have the dialogue around, how can we activate the voice and maybe move more women into senior leadership positions as just one data point. I hate to say I've been to many insurance conferences that I'm not sure the diversity was as wide as it could be. So I think as an industry, we have a ways to go. And I know we're all up for that challenge. We have many programs, Lynn, as you kind of shared too. We have something called our business resource groups. And we've started the Women's Network, the WIN Network, we call it at Aon. And we do a lot of partnerships with insurance companies, and we kind of host those throughout many of our cities. And they're a very inclusive type of networking event so that we can really support each other and all forms of diversity and inclusion. We have lots of high potential mentoring and sponsorship programs. I think sponsorship is one of the most critical pieces of advice that I could give to ourselves as we move ahead, but as we're trying to develop the talent to have a more diverse workforce, that is a critical part of the strategy. But I would say, after the pandemic, as if that wasn't enough, when the George Floyd tragedy took place, there was an absolute shift in the conversation and the sense of urgency to have new conversations and a different call to action. And we started with something we called a listening tour. So when it first started, I thought, how's this going to go? I mean, we're going to sit down and have an open conversation, bring our Black colleagues to the forefront and ask them, how are you feeling? And that's when these are people I've worked side by side for as long as I can remember. And when they started to share their stories, I got chills. And I was thinking about, I've got two daughters, 14 and 17. And my 17 has been driving for a year, and I'm constantly nervous every time she leaves the house. But when I listened to some of my Black colleagues that shared their story of what they are giving advice to their children as they get behind the wheel, if they would get pulled over, it was heartbreaking to me. So what we saw as an immediate opener to that conversation was a new bond was formed, a deeper bond was formed, but a sense of call to action that we've got to be better, not just within our company, but within our communities. And that's what I see as a sustained conversation that has taken a new level. It has at our company, and it sounds, I know that to be true, Lynn, at AIG, and Mike, I'm sure yours as well. And what Aon has done is taken our strong diversity and inclusion, but taken it a step up. So we have re-engaged a global inclusion council where we've elevated an executive council that is reporting into our CEO, Greg Case, and Lisa Stevens, our chief people officer. And it has very clear measurements and metrics and objectives of what are we going to do to be intentional and get better. And the thing I'm most proud of is a $30 million investment in a program we call the Apprentice Program. It's something we started in 2012. And it's not just an Aon program, it's something that we are happy to share with any corporation. It is a concept where we're working with community colleges and we're giving diverse people a chance to, we call it earn while you learn. So they're still in school and we're helping them with jobs at Aon, and we're helping them build a professional career path. And it's a wonderful, wonderful program. So we are really looking forward to seeing how we can expand that in our industry, and looking forward to seeing the impact that we can make. But the biggest difference that I feel is we're not going to have a brief conversation around the George Floyd tragedy. I think we're having a sustained and intentional heightened commitment, Danielle, to really committing ourselves to building a much more diverse workforce, which we know is good for client relationships. It brings diversity of thought and innovation. It makes us all better. So I'm excited to see where we can go as an industry. And I think we need to challenge ourselves in the insurance industry to fight for the best talent. And diversity strategy is going to be critical to our success.
Yeah, I think you're spot on, and I see everybody shaking their head. I think two key things that you said: sponsorship. I agree with you. I was blessed to have a wonderful sponsor, and that's why I'm here today. And I think all of us are probably in the same boat. And second is that sustained conversation. I agree with you. It cannot be a once and done. So I've had you talk a little bit about your company cultures. I've had you talk a little bit about diversity and inclusion. So what do you guys think our new norm is going to begin to look like with our companies? You talked a little bit about real estate. Can you divulge a little more on that, recruiting and further engagement with your employees and clients? Mike, what do you think?
Yeah, no, thanks, Danielle. It definitely is changing. I'm sure we're not unique in the fact that we're, especially when you start picking these things off one at a time. When you look at real estate, it is important to be able to collaborate and to have the kind of space available for your colleagues to be able to get together. You lose that. I heard it said at some point in time through the pandemic, you lose some of that creative combustion. When you're all in a room and you can talk about things and throw them up on the board and really banter back and forth, it's a bit more, like I said when we started this call, this will do. But when we're together, you really get a bit more of those creative juices flowing, and so we're very mindful of that. At the same point in time, we want to be mindful of the fact that we were always sort of in and out of our approach to having folks work from remotely or work from home. And there was always is there that trust factor? Can they get the job done? How do you engage if you need something immediately? And I think what the pandemic has done, if there is a silver lining to it, is it's proven to us that we can get the job done. We just have to make sure that we are always looking at ways to balance that with those creative aspects that come with being together in a room. And the second part of being able to work remotely is that a lot of our colleagues really have appreciated it. Take aside maybe the fact that they're trying to balance both a home life and a work life at the same time in the same property. When kids are back to school, when there's a bit more normalcy, the fact that they don't have to commute. I think about some of our colleagues that work in Midtown Manhattan, and they had some really difficult commutes oftentimes, and the ability for them to be flexible and yet still really productive, I think, is a huge opportunity. So I'm sure, again, like everyone else, we're looking at exactly what we want that real estate footprint of the future to look like. A place that's welcoming, that you're still proud to have clients come, but yet is flexible and not necessarily so overwhelming that everyone has to have their spot to go to every single day, that they can have the flexibility of working from home. So to that end, I think it could be a good thing. As far as recruiting, same holds true. You've got to sort of open up that those creative ideas on how you're going to reach out to people when it's not as easy as it was before, at least during the pandemic. I think post-pandemic, we'll return to a bit of normalcy, but what we are learning from it is that now we could go find the right person for the job no matter where they live or reside. And that is huge. So, when you may have thought that if your office was in downtown Chicago or in San Francisco, they had to have a certain radius of commute time to that office, I don't think that's the case anymore. You can really find people that are really good and talented in any corner of the globe. And I think that's going to be a huge opportunity and a huge advantage, especially as we become even more technical and technology plays a bigger part of our jobs every single day. I think that will really give us an opportunity to recruit people that maybe we wouldn't have in the past. But you do have to be deliberate about it. And back to the DEI conversation, it's important. I agree with everything Lynn and Lori said. It's important that we expose more people to this great industry, whether you're on the insurance company side or the insurance brokerage side. Sometimes people say insurance and, it makes them squirm, right? No one wants to think about it. We know it as a great industry that does great things and puts people's lives back together. But I think this will also give us the opportunity to recruit more people from all different backgrounds in any part of the country, any part of the globe, that have the opportunity to work in this great industry. So I think recruiting, I see upside there. I see tremendous upside in terms of finding the talent to bring into our industry. We know in this industry there's far more people retiring than there are coming in every single year. So it's not just simply about keeping everything the same. It's about sort of survival, really. When you think about it, we've got to get more people and definitely more people of color interested in this great industry. And so we're taking deliberate actions at Gallagher to do just that. And I know they are at Aon and AIG and others as well. And then the culture aspects of it, kind of dovetailing on what I was saying earlier, we can't forget how important it is to reach out and communicate with people and touch them on a regular basis, make them feel part of something bigger than what they are, where they live. And so I think the technology plays a big part in that, whether it's, again, an app or podcasts or what have you, because as that workforce becomes more remote, we're going to have to work and remember all the tactics that we put in play during the pandemic to make sure we're reaching out to these folks on a regular basis to keep those cultures intact. Because everyone always, in any company, and it is true, the secret sauce at Gallagher is our culture. The secret sauce at Aon is their culture. At AIG, the same thing. We work really hard. And you can't measure it often, but when it doesn't exist. So you got to make sure you're taking action on it.
Well said, Mike. I think it all ties together to culture, and I love the word creative combustion. So hopefully we'll see some really cool technology come out around that too, for us to be more creative when we're working from remote. But I think very well said. Lynn, how about your perspective?
Well, Mike, you hit on so many things. You saw my head nodding. I'm going to start with recruiting. I have a 20-year-old, Lori. So my 20-year-old has been living in the room next door on her first co-op work term in the property casualty insurance business. So I actually have a front row seat at our industry through her eyes. And she's working for a competitor I won't name, but the onboarding process, the recruiting process, and how our organizations show up on campus. And I think we do have an opportunity right now. And that is, this is a fantastic industry. I'm absolutely on a mission to create a pull into this industry. And look around us, we are gainfully employed in the midst of a cruel global pandemic. And in fact, our professional lives have never been busier. And there are so my daughter is in a co-op program. She has a series of roommates. Their co-op terms were either scaled back, they were cut in half. Some of the jobs were sunsetted because the industries were significantly impacted. But all of those students who were in the property casualty business had fully engaged, great onboarding, super technology delivered to the house. And I think we need to capitalize on this time. And I think this is our chance to pivot and really sell property casualty insurance as the future, because I really believe you can have any background and any degree. So we need to get on campus. We need to be clear in our messaging. We need to work together. And we need to create those case competitions and those student engagement opportunities through risk and insurance societies, through Gamma Iota Sigma, through all of the vehicles that are available to us. Because when we create the pull, and it is a very diverse group of students that we're attracting, I think we're getting to the right spot. I think that when I think further about recruiting, I think about onboarding. And that has been a unique challenge in 2020. So we have so many employees that have joined our organization. I'll just speak to Canada. We've onboarded 50 people this year. And some of them have never actually set foot in our premises. They were interviewed online, they were hired online, they were onboarded online, so we had to get better. I read a survey that said that brand new employees to your organization actually decide if they're going to hang around in the first 5 days. And I didn't believe that research. So I went a little bit deeper, and it actually true, and it's about how they feel. How at home do they feel? So we've really ramped up our onboarding and taken it virtual, and we create every quarter almost the new hire club. We bring the entire senior leadership to them. We walk them through who we are in the Canadian market, how we show up, who our partners are, and give them really the facts about our organization in the marketplace. And then we build buddies and partnerships outside of their own teams. And that there's a very, very deliberate onboarding plan for 90 days. I think it's important to grab our new hires into the industry. I think we've had to be more creative in that regard. And we're creating a community, and those communities are a little bit different virtually than they have been in person. And I guess that leads me to real estate. And as I engage with our clients and brokers from every walk of industry, we're hearing so many thoughts around real estate and footprint in manufacturing premises where the local regulatory guidance forces social distancing, and on assembly lines, and in certain industries where it's really tough and PPE is required. And I think that the footprint will look different. I think it will be hybrid. I believe that we will have a workforce who, to Mike's point, embrace the benefits of working from home and are going to take back some of that commute. So as leaders, All of the skills we've honed, and I would say the skill of empathy has been the biggest one this year. So that would have been one of my pivots. I would usually start a meeting with the agenda, and certainly for my team members and smaller groups, it's been all about how are you, what's going on, and really meeting people where they are, and leading with empathy. So that was a roundabout way. Lori, I would imagine you can add.
Well, I think it's changed totally the way we think. And I would have been one of those people before, Danielle, that I certainly support and lead with flexibility and remote. Mike, as you said, we've all I think had to create that type of environment already. But now we're not afraid to entirely think differently. You know, why can't we move more jobs to give that flexibility? So we're literally going through all of the job profiles and trying to figure out which could be fully remote, partially virtual, and it will totally change the talent pool. So I agree with the comments that have been made. I think the add I'd want to make is also, this is our opportunity to consult differently and be at the table with our own companies different. It took me months before I personally, you know, admitted I've probably got to get a stand-up desk. I've probably got to find a way to get a bigger monitor, maybe buy a mouse pad, you know. So what are we doing for the thousands of colleagues that work around us? How are we helping them adjust to that ergonomic reality in their own world? And then take it a step further. If we really continue to go more into the digital sharing economy, which I believe we will, I believe every company will go further down that route. How do you think about, if you want to promote a culture of safety or risk control, how are we going to consult differently to those clients? Certainly, you know, an opportunity for AIG to think about product development. So as we think about how we're consulting to our clients, I think there's a huge opportunity for all of us to be more relevant to what does the future of work look like. It's the number one conversation that I would say our clients want to have today. And I would take us back to not forgetting about fair pay and gender equity. So as we love the flexibility, if you're moving from New York to Austin, you know, you've got to make sure you have a strategy that addresses the differences in pay equity. So I think we are absolutely open-minded in our entire industry right now, in our companies, thinking about how can we really engage differently, and all of the benefits that may come with that, and a better talent pool, a broader talent pool. But I think we have to really think of the risk management side of this and the people side of this strategy, and make sure we're pivoting quickly to refresh how we consult on these topics. Because I think it's going to be different, and we've got to maybe permanently change our thinking about innovation and our consultation to help clients be as successful as they possibly can be, and within our own companies.
Well said actually by all three of you. I think that working together as an industry is going to be key, whether it's around how we integrate new talent into our workspace, diversity, inclusion. But I'd like even the comment about how it's going to breed opportunity, different kinds of opportunities for all of us and for our people, which I think makes our industry more exciting. We just got to get better at pushing out there how exciting our industry can be, right? So we really need to do that. So let me talk about you guys a little bit. So let me ask you guys some questions. You know, as we talked about as leaders, these are very unordinary times. They can be stressful times. But I think even more important, there are times where we just don't have our regular playbook that we just talked about, having to pivot, having to do things different, having to think different. So how, as leaders, are you filling your tank? How are you keeping yourself motivated? How are you making sure you don't burn out too quickly? Because you're probably working and being right here like this on Zoom from sun up to sundown. How about you, Lori?
Well, it's the big question, Danielle, and it is the one that keeps me up at night, not really for myself, but all the employees that I feel responsible for. And I I think one of the first things we did, and Mike, you said it, you had that app where you're sharing success stories. You had it before, but it's even more vital now. So we started by canvassing what are all those unique ideas happening in all the offices and with all the teams. And, you know, we had one team that does yoga together virtually, which I thought was awesome. I never would have thought of that. Another team gets on the Peloton and they follow each other. You know, one has found kind of a park and a picnic and they get 6 feet apart and have a great lunch, you know, on Fridays. So I think as a leader, I felt a huge sense of responsibility to gather as many of those things as I could and share them, because we need to be engaged week in and week out for our own tank, but also to lead other people. And I think anything that we can do across our companies to share these ideas is a way we can just get through this. I sincerely worry about the mental health that is the strain that is going on. I think it's far more severe and real than perhaps we even know yet today. With my senior at home, she is not going to her state basketball. She cannot go see colleges to apply. And so how can we share stories with each other and create almost community groups, Danielle, to find a path out, because there's not a manual that's been written on this. And so for me personally, I try to make sure that I'm leading by example. So if instead of an hour call, why not a 45-minute call? Why can't we do a walking conference call? Why not give permission to not be on video for this call? So, or maybe I show up in a video with a baseball hat and a ponytail or something, and celebrate that. So I think we have to really find a way to help each other keep our tanks full. And that is something that I try to practice myself as often as possible. But even like tonight, I've never in my career been home 5 days a week. The thought of having that dinner is great. And I tend to be pretty open with my colleagues, and I learned how to jam strawberries or make strawberry jam, and we share it. So if you have something you said, you know, I never had time before to develop that hobby, now's the time. And we're sharing that with each other, which is really fun. And never in a million years would I thought I could be home for 9 months in a row every night of the week. What am I going to do with that wonderful gift? And it is a gift. And that gives my tank energy for sure.
Yeah, it definitely is a gift. I agree with you. How about you, Mike? What are you doing?
Well, you said a lot of the things that I was that I've been trying to do as well, and I would tell you first and foremost, aside early on in the pandemic, getting to know my friend Tito very well, and club soda was really the remedy to my sanity. But all kidding aside, you know, I think it is about finding that happy place. It is about encouraging people to do the same. And, you know, I love, Lori, what you said. I think it gets back to sort of the local leadership, you know, as leaders of divisions of our respective companies, you're a bit further removed from the daily interaction. And so we really pushed our local leaders to really take ownership of making sure that they're encouraging their teams to do exactly what Lori was saying, you know, whether it's yoga, virtual yoga, whether it's the virtual happy hours, whether it's, you name it, something to sort of take the pressure off, because there is a lot more pressure. You know, I think the accessibility. So, you know, when Lori was saying, you know, I never was home 5 days in a row, you know, I had a bit of the same schedule, and you always had that built-in downtime because you had travel, and you could read a book, and you were removed from your computer if you wanted to be, and no one second guessed it. And now, you know, I'm sure your schedules are similar, that it gets populated a lot more frequently with meetings because it can be, and that's okay, because there's a lot of things to be discussed and things going on, but then you've got to be deliberate about finding your happy place and finding room, and whether it's working out or learning a new hobby or learning a new language. Last month or so, I've been seeing a virtual tutor to polish up my Spanish, because it's gotten pretty stale, and that's challenging, and it's different. It's not related to my work every day, and it sort of challenges your mind, because I couldn't agree with Lori more about the sort of the mental health challenges that many of our colleagues face, and us included. I mean, we're people as well, and so we have those bad days and good days, and the problem with the bad days now is that you're in the same room as you were when you had the good day, and so you just got to make sure that you're constantly encouraging people, and as an organization, making sure that they know where they can get help if they need to raise their hand, and so we've constantly been putting out information about resources and tools that our folks have access to, for support, mentally, for physical well-being, all that sort of stuff, because that is crucial to this. It did get stale. It has that COVID fatigue thing, and not only is dangerous, obviously from a COVID perspective, but it's dangerous for a lot of reasons because of the mental health impact. So, I think that we've been really just focused on making sure people understand that we're here for them when they need to talk, but we also want them to be guilt-free when they take that needed time and space away from their laptops, away from their computers, away from their phone, and that's okay. And honestly, when you think about the real estate concept going forward, again, one of the silver linings there is that you think in the past when people were working remotely, there was always just this sort of thing in the back of everyone's mind, well, they're not really working. They must be on a golf course, or there's someplace, nice and so forth. That's not true anymore. We know people are working. We know they're accountable, but we know now that they can be productive and still give themselves the time and space needed to really correct whatever they need to in their own personal well-being.
Well, Mike, gracias. That's about as far as I go. I'll have to maybe jump on your bandwagon there. But I think both.
Poco, so.
But I agree with both you and Lori. And my little thing is I block off my calendar at lunchtime for an hour, whether it's just to go have a sandwich with my son and husband that are stuck with me in the house, or it's to take my dog for a walk. Doesn't always happen, doesn't always stay, but I at least have it blocked initially. So Lynn, how about you? How do you motivate yourself and engage without burning out?
Oh, a great question. I love all the ideas. You see me taking notes because I'm constantly adding to my list. Well, you'll see fresh flowers in the background. I'm saving so much money on personal travel. I've decided that I deserve fresh flowers every week. And I've given every single member of my team permission that they deserve fresh flowers every week too. So I look for moments. I look for, we're bombarded by information. I don't know if your email has triplicated, but the number of invitations that you receive, I've become very, very deliberate. I have found a couple of authors that their regular blogs speak to me directly. They seem to be on the same wavelength at the same time. They're speaking to the subject matter that is grabbing me, and so I share those with my team. Our team has really activated community engagement and giving back. And there really is a physiology to charitable acts. When you give, you receive, and you receive almost an endorphin or adrenaline. It is a wonderfully positive feeling. So Giving Tuesday was an opportunity, and we're a hugely competitive bunch. And so we had a leadership challenge, and we said to our leaders, get your teams, find a way to engage and have some fun together. And of course, AIG has been incredibly generous with volunteer time off, adding to that bank this year, and providing a day off in the spring, and the World Mental Health Day. AIG gave the entire employee population that day to be very mindful. And so our hashtag at AIG on all of our internal communications is hashtag #AreYouOK? And that's really where it starts. It starts by fueling. So we have a partnership with Enactus globally, but also here in Canada. and they're challenged. They're university students who are running sustainable businesses. They're trying to get all that done on campus with the social distancing rules, and they're really missing mentors. And so I would encourage you, your local campuses for college and university are desperate for some of your time. And we have found, as leaders and our entire employee resource group population, engaging as mentors with university students will make you feel fantastic after an hour. They will energize you. They will also, because they're asking you really simple, early leadership questions that we've actually been doing so long we've forgotten. But you remember how you learned those skills, and being able to share them with someone is a very, very personally rewarding experience. So we're doing it all. We're baking, we're attached to photos. We are running webcasts where the children of AIG Canada are actually the stars, not the parents. We'll try anything. So any good ideas, please send them our way. And I think, Lori, like you, we're just collecting and really trying to ground. So I'm in the north. And no, we don't all live in igloos, but I am north of the 49th, and it's dark. And it's dark early in the morning, and it's dark by the time we step away from the screen in the late afternoon. And so I think we have to be really intentional. So we've started being incredibly intentional at AIG in Canada, and our intentional word of December is joy. So we will find joy and give joy every day. And that simple intention, which is a mindfulness exercise to start your day, is bringing us together in really interesting and unique ways. So I think we've talked about it already, but there's real opportunity to, and it can come from anywhere in your organization, but just bring all the good ideas on and let them shine.
I love the hashtag, are you okay? I might have to steal that, Lynn. I really
You are allowed. In fact, you can post on our channels.
All right. I appreciate all those great ideas. All right. Last but not least, and before if we have time, we'll take some questions. We've heard a lot today about how you've all had to pivot and do things very differently. Give me one piece of advice or words of encouragement you would like to provide our audience today. Mike?
Well, I think my piece of advice is that you sometimes you have to dig really hard to find the positives, especially in a pandemic, and you could either view this as a setback, or you can view it as a setup. And I think it's if you view it as a setup for greatness, a setup for changing how you work, a setup for finding new people to bring into your organization, a setup for being able to work with clients in a much different way that brings talent to the forefront much more easily. I think not only you'll appreciate it as a person in this industry, but I think you'll appreciate it individually, because it'll help support that whole concept of this isn't an end, this is a beginning. The mental health challenges I think that people have is that they don't see the end. But if you view this as only the start of something that's going to be even greater than it was, and a setup for success, then I think we'll all come through this. And I always tell my folks, let's come through the pandemic on a dead sprint. Let's not come through crawling and walking and just happy that we made it through. Let's sprint out of it. If we're going to sprint out of it, we've got to get creative, we've got to be deliberate, and we've got to think of it as a setup for success.
Excellent. How about you, Lynn?
I really like that, Mike. My advice is twofold. It's eye on the horizon. And it's that time of year where we start thinking about the year drawing to a close, and our goals and our objectives and our resolutions for 2021. And so we do have to think forward and think for the long game. And it's even a visioning exercise we're using around career development and skills development as we set our goals and objectives within AIG for ourselves personally. And so I think be very deliberate and intentional about development. See your career, where you want it to go. And this is not a pause. This is an opportunity. So we're not setting aside our objectives because we have barking dogs and a couple of kids at home who are demanding our attention. All of our guidance to our professionals is this is still an opportunity. And if you need to fill your tank, if there is a day when you're not at 100%, it's okay to tell someone and to share that. And so, eye on the horizon, fill and fuel your tank. I love that. And it's okay to be okay.
Excellent, excellent. I agree with you. How about you, Lori?
Well, these are such great conversations. And Lynn, I wanted to share one idea from the last section. And you mentioned kids as the star at AIG. It reminded me of someone in our field developed an idea where the older kids read to the younger kids by Zoom. And they wound up also being able to get some school social hours credit. But the main point was to connect the kids. And how neat is that to see all those pictures of engaging the children in a different way. And I guess my closing thought on what I heard, Danielle, is really, we talked about the workforce of the future and the new norm. I look at it as, what is your personal new norm? I think we've got about 3 more months before we're probably, it could be 6. I'm an optimist, so I'm hoping it's 3, where we might, go back to the office every day. Mike, I don't know what that office will look like for sure yet. So I think we've all got a chance to reevaluate what's our personal new norm. And for me, I would say I have always loved my career back when I started as an underwriter. I also grew up in a dad who was one of 8 kids. And the profile of success was being a mother and being a mom. And I want to be a mother. I am a mother. I'm a wife, but I wanted to be an executive as well. And I get that question of, how did you work-life balance? How did you do it? And I always wondered, am I making the right choices to follow my career aspirations? Am I sacrificing being a mom, being a wife, and being home in this pandemic? I always wondered, am I missing out? And I think what I've really learned is I haven't been, because now I'm home every night. My kids are still up in their room. They're doing their homework. They're talking to their friends. And I'm downstairs screaming, but I'm home. What's going on? So it's a blessing I never thought I would get, to be able to have confidence that it was okay to really reach for what I wanted to in my career. And that's my advice, no matter woman, male, any kind of background. Go for what you want to do, develop your personal norm. Your personal success and what your new norm is. And it's been a real blessing for me to come to that realization that I always would have second guessed Danielle had I not had this moment.
I'm right there with you, being a mother of 3, so I can relate 100%. So we've got some time left, and I've got some fun questions that have come from the audience, so I hope you're prepared. Here's the first one. What has been something rewarding career-wise that would not have happened in a normal year? I guess we're calling this year the non-normal year. So can you think of something that has happened rewarding career-wise that would not have happened in a normal year? Got any takers?
Yeah.
Okay, Lori.
Mike, you sure? I'm going to piggyback off something you said earlier, Mike, and it was the availability that we have, which I totally agree with. And I've got to take a page from Danielle's book and block more time. But I think the positive has been the engagement that we've had with insurance companies, with clients, that I actually think we have driven more value and pushed out more thoughtful content and engagement clients are more intentional on what do they want to hear from us, and we're more intentional on pushing out relevant content and creating forums for them to communicate with each other. When we're all running around on planes and in meetings, and it takes you 2 weeks to get one meeting scheduled, that doesn't happen now. So I think that has been a real benefit, is the value that we have brought to whatever constituents we're serving. We have been able to do it much more effectively, and it's that availability, Mike, you talked about earlier.
How about you, Mike? What's something that's been rewarding career-wise that would not have happened in a normal year?
Yeah, I was going to say almost exactly what Lori said. I started, Gallagher's the only job I've ever had. And I started at Gallagher as a producer. And that was my favorite thing. I loved being in front of clients. I loved the conversation. I loved being relevant and helping guide them through what was a really important expense for them, and the coaching and all that other stuff that goes along with being a producer. And, in a given year, I may get the opportunity to spend, maybe a dozen or 2 dozen really legitimate meetings with clients. And in the first 3 months of the pandemic, I was far in excess of that, because it was accepted. It was acceptable to be participating in a forum like this, where we may have had numerous people from all across the globe participating, and I was able to participate. And whether I was wallpaper or whether I was contributing, just being a part of that and hearing what they had to say really was exciting for me. So it was, I hope that doesn't go away. I hope that is a genuine way that we practice our trade going forward in the future. I mean, certainly I want to shake hands. I want to be able to have dinner with clients and break bread and do those sort of things, because those really become relationship builders. But in the meantime, I also want to be able to be there and hear what they're saying, because we're in the thought leadership business, right? I mean, we sell an intangible, and so we've got to make sure that we're listening to our customers and to our people. To be very candid, I mean, we talked about, I think, Lynn, you talked about, some of the forums that you have, and maybe it was you as well, Lori, about, in terms of DE&I, and we've had numerous what we've called courageous conversations that we really didn't have in the past. I mean, we always had diversity and inclusion as a priority within the organization, but truly just listening, and the technology now for that's available for us to be able to do that and make eye contact and truly have a genuine interaction is really something that I'll take away from this pandemic.
And Lynn, I'll let you get in there real quick, and then I got to wrap us up.
I will. I would echo both of the comments. I would just call it reach, and reach with intention. Lori talked about many more meetings, but more effective meetings. And in the past, as much as I love a meal and enjoy that camaraderie and conversation, I think we've been more efficient and effective. So you asked the question, Danielle, from a career-wise perspective. I think I've honed some of my communication skills and some of my leadership skills. I think I have become much more intentional and been able to actually accomplish more, so that when it's the end of the day and I walk away from the screen, I know that we have listened, we have heard, and we have contributed. And I think that fills my tank.
That's excellent. Excellent. Well, unfortunately, we're not going to get to some of the other questions, but first and foremost, I would like to thank you, Lori, Mike, Lynn, for your time. It's been an honor to be your moderator today, and I really enjoyed our discussion on successful leadership during a crisis. Your ideas, your thoughts, your energy has been phenomenal. I really thought it was great how you provided our audience either words of wisdom or some guidance during these times, and I know they're going to take that to heart and encourage their staff as they navigate the situation as we go forward. But let's also congratulate our 2020 Women to Watch winners and all that they've accomplished, especially during 2020. Congratulations. And everyone, thank you and have a great day.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.